have limited our ability to do this, as well as on sugar sweetened beverages. But we're working diligently to try and change that. What I wanted to do, though, is show you some of the impacts that we could anticipate from future cigarette tax increases, and particularly meeting the EU benchmark. And I think that is ultimately the long-term goal, or at least the long-term target. The current cigarette rate is 51 euros per thousand cigarettes, and under current law that is scheduled to be about 2 euros a year for the next 2 years. We did 53 euros next year and 55 euros in 2025. And what we were able to do is to model the impact first on prices, and then the impact of prices on sales, and then estimate the revenue from it. And what's really interesting is that even with the tax increase of 2 euros per thousand cigarettes next year, we actually anticipate that cigarettes will become cheaper in inflation-adjusted terms. And the reason being is we're in a relatively higher inflation environment globally, but also in Costco, and the result of it is running quicker than the increase in tax. And so we actually anticipate, even with the scheduled tax increase next year, that cigarettes will become marginally cheaper by about 1.2%, and that will actually potentially result in an increase in sales rather than an increase in sales of 0.6%. But at the same time, it will result in an increase in revenue of 10 million euros. That said, that increase in 10 million euros in inflation-adjusted terms is equivalent to a decrease in tax revenue. So it's a bit of a catch-22. That said, in 2025, we're expecting inflation to normalize a bit more, and that same €2 increase is actually going to result in an increase in revenue and an increase in real terms and a decrease in consumption. That's it. We also wanted to test a more ambitious scenario and say, what if Kosovo were able to achieve the EU benchmark quickly, let's say next year? Maybe it's a little bit implausible, but it's a useful exercise. And what we could quite clearly see is that meeting the EU benchmark results in a dramatic change, a dramatic increase in prices, a dramatic decline in sales, I think 16% decline in sales, and a 41% increase in revenue, and an increase in additional revenue of over 100 million euros, which is a phenomenal amount of money in a small country. We also then tested 2 other scenarios because as part of the EU directive, it requires also a reform of the tax structure to use what's called an ad valorem tax as well alongside the volume-based tax. And what we show is that the higher the ad valorem component in order to meet that EU benchmark, while it has a marginal benefit on revenue, it actually causes the reduction in sales to be significantly less. And so the key message from that is that limiting that ad valorem component results in the best health impact. So in summary, we just want to highlight that Kosovo has made some significant progress in health taxes. That said, there's significant work to be done, particularly on tobacco, with significant increases that have been needed, along with some small structural reforms to meet EU benchmarks. Alcohol taxes, while it already meets the EU benchmarks, there's significant scope for reforming alcohol taxes and raising revenue in alcohol taxes, and additionally, possibly as well, sugar sweetened beverage taxes. So that said, I think we're very pleased to be working on this topic in Kosovo, and very pleased to share the results of this work with you today. We've actually recently just updated these with new data in the last few months, and this is the first time presenting it. And so happy to take any questions and engagement as the day goes on. Thank you very much.